loud codes.
Baby. Flare your nostrils and your trousers. Hitch up that boob tube. We're getting down and heading back to the 70s. A time of mirror balls, medallions, magnificent music, and polyester leisure wear.
Disco music became popular because it taught white people how to dance.
It was girly, really, disco.
I got a picture of me at home that looks like a cowboy.
Dress code, smart casual. No jeans, no trainers, just the hits, the moves, and the style of a more glamorous age.
Real metal now.
I got better and better and better every week because I was living, eating, breathing disco.
Travolta was terrified. He was going to quit the movie.
So pour yourself a rum and black, sit back, and let us take you to a time when disco ruled the world.
You know this shit is happening, right?
So I'd like to know where you got the notion.
It's 1974, and strike-bound Britain squirms under the fist of the unions and the platform boot of the sweet. But in America, a bright new sound is emerging from the gay, black and Latin clubs. The new cocktail was a jigger of Motown, a finger of funk and R&B, and a dash of the Caribbean from Miami. Mr. Big behind the Miami sound was Harry.
That bars and lounges weren't doing too well. You could see that it wasn't happening. When you whisper, sweet in my ear. And they're all like these discotheques or these clubs. You're spinning records. Oh, that's the way I like it. And I just felt that this was what was probably going to become the new thing.
Casey had many disco hits under his own name, but his first genuine classic was written for somebody else.
The song really didn't sound like what the Casey and the Sunshine Band records were sounding like, and I thought it maybe needed a sweeter voice than mine was.
Sexy. Fortunately, George McRae happened to be passing by, perhaps hunting for the man who'd stolen his shirt.
I said, George, come over here a minute, and I hummed in this melody, woman, take me in your arms, rock you, baby. Woman, take me in your arms, rock you, baby. And the minute he sang it back to me, I just knew that that was the voice for this song.
Yeah, when I recorded Rock Your Baby, I felt it was my last chance to make it. My first recording, I think, only 2 copies were sold. And I bought those 2 copies. And so I went in the studio and cut the track in one take.
I remember the song, Woman, take me in your arms, rock it. And there was that dance, it was that one, isn't it? Yeah, I remember that dance. That's so easy. That was good.
The record ended up costing $15. I think that's what they played the guitar player, because I had done all the other stuff on the record.
And then after that, he created a whole new phenomenon that was unbelievable. This song became the national anthem of disco.
first real disco hit, although when you look back it's actually quite soft, was Rock Your Baby by George McCrae, quickly followed by Rock the Boat by the Hughes Corporation. It was those two songs that I think really kick-started the disco phenomenon in this country.
Come on. Rock Your Baby went #1 in 51 countries. It was just #1 everywhere.
It was #1 in the United States, #1 in Japan, the Philippines, Brazil, and South America, and Canada. It was #1 in Bangkok, and all of Africa, Kenya, Australia was another, New Zealand. Ah, yes. It was a huge success.
I could have the hit record and kind of sit at home, and George had to do all the work.
Disco was here, but disc jockeys had their work cut out. The records only lasted 3 minutes, and mixing was still something you did with egg whites and a Kenwood chef.
We weren't allowed to mix. You had to talk, and the audience did not dance unless you spoke. So you had to rev that. You go, "Hi, that was George McCrae and Rock Your Baby." And if you think, "Oh, I'll just play 2 records together, I'll segue them 2 together." Like, if you did it 3 times in a row, you were in trouble. We're not paying you to stand there and just play records. Anybody could do that. You have to talk and entertain.
But everything's bigger in America, and new US acts were pioneering king-size, extra-length disco records.
Gloria Gaynor plays a major role in the emergence of disco. Her album, Never Can Say Goodbye, was the very first album to actually segue 3 tracks together commercially.
I never can say goodbye. No, no, no.
She was a disc jockey's dream. The audience wanted to hear the whole album.
The album was very different because it was the first album to be done with non-stop play. So with the songs segueing one into another, all pretty much the same beat. Very much like the way that DJs mix records today.
When I finished the album, Never Can Say Goodbye, I went over to the office, and there was Gloria, and she said, "Well, can I hear it?" And I said, "Sure." So I played it, and it was like 19 minutes long, and everybody just looked at me, and I said, "Well, what do you think?" And she said, "I don't sing much."
I honestly don't remember what he said to me. I probably was too wrapped up in my ego thinking, if you wanted an instrumental, why didn't you just record a musician? Because there was so much music.
And I said, "Well, I guess, Gloria, you'll have to learn a few steps."
But then when I thought like a dancer, I thought, that's great.
The DJs absolutely loved it. They just never heard anything like that before.
You could go for a pee with this record. It was great. You know, I was on for 2 hours at a time. It's a lot of bloody records to get in. But this one was great because you could go and have sex round the back and come back and it would still be playing. It was fantastic.
Nice image, Pete. So while Pete's knees were trembling, Gloria Gaynor was crowned Queen of Disco. But in Germany, there was a woman who had ways of making you dance. Producer Giorgio Moroder was the man behind the new sexy sound of Donna Summer's first hit.
When we recorded it, there was a lot of people in the studio, her husband, the technician, some musician, and she just didn't feel like she would have a good performance. So basically I threw everybody out, dimmed the light so she couldn't see me and I could barely see her, and that's when she did it.
To love you, babe. Ooh. I remember the song. I don't remember the panting. Is there panting in that?
Oh yeah, it got very raunchy, didn't it? Yeah.
Do it to me again and again. You put me in such an awful spin, in a spin.
Love to Love You Baby was a song that definitely shaped part of my sexuality.
Set me free.
She starts groaning and really getting into the tune.
And I go, ooh, what am I feeling? I don't know what it is, but I like it.
It was filthy, wasn't it?
When you're laying so close to me, there's no place I'd rather you be than with me.
I thought, what's the matter with her? She see a doctor or something. I was thinking, why is she? I was tempted to go, Mum, why is she moaning so much?
When you get that sort of innuendo so full in your face, you can't enjoy it. It's just like, Donna, I'm coping with what you're doing at the minute. Please, woman, just stand back. Sing on the back foot.
There's something about it. It's a very kind of song that you can have in your private moments with your school diary or your vibrator, depending on what kind of girl you were. Sorry.
There's a variant that says you don't go there, and they went there.
I don't think I would have had the nerve to sing those songs because I would realize that at some point I had to sing them in public.
Donna's next hit also had a knob-twiddling element as Giorgio went back to his electronic roots.
Before the success of Donna, I had several hits in the UK. One, Son of My Father, with Chicory Tip. The electronic sound on Son of My Father was the beginning of a great friendship between the synthesizers and me. It started with a bass line, dung 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 dung.
It's absolutely monotic.
The only thing left human kind of is the voice.
It's absolutely in your brain the minute you hear it, and then I feel love, I feel love, feel love, feel love. You just go up, and every kid used to run to the dance floor.
I Feel Love's one of the most important records ever made. There are other people who've been electronic experimenters before that, but the first record to use sequencers and synthesizers in that robotic and repetitive way to make pop sounds was Giorgio Moroder.
He was like the German version of Casey, so there were two groundswells of new music coming along. Casey and George's kind of had more soul to it, whereas Donna Summers was very electronic.
We created a new star, we created a new genre. Suddenly, the word disco was born.
Donna Summer was marketed as the first lady of lust in the 70s. It was very overt. They were very conscious of the erotic aspect of disco and of dance music and used that to sell records, and it worked.
Disco and sex went together hand in hand anyway. One of the big disco hits was More, More, More by the Andrea True Connection. Andrea True, who was a bona fide porn actress.
I want more. I want more. How do you like it? How do you like it?
More, more, more. She was a porno star? Wow, I didn't know that. I would have bought a record.
How do you like it? How do you like it?
It never once dawned on me what she was. Because when I heard the song, you know, More, 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 How Do You Like It? I thought she was talking about the music.
But if you want to know how I really feel, just get the cameras rolling, get the action going.
The soft falsetto just seemed right. It had that, I'm next to your ear, maybe I'm next to your ear on your pillow.
And I said, you know, Andrea, I'm just really troubled by one of those verses. She goes, what's that? And I said, well, if you want to know how I truly feel.
Just get the cameras rolling, get the action going.
I said, what in God's name does that mean? And she said, well, don't you know what I do? And I said, sing, I thought. And she said, no, I suck and fuck in the movies. I know you won't use that, so, but that's true. I didn't know what to say. Am I red? Because I was so red when she said that to me. I almost died.
No such shenanigans here, though, where the first lady of homegrown disco, Tina Charles, was more Laura Ashley than Linda Lovelace.
Maybe what had happened is Donna had gone in too ham-fisted with her sex on legs, and then we got Tina Charles just swaying in a bit of gingham, loving to love, and that was fine. That was pull it back, let's make it a bit more respectable. So well done, Tina.
The song was produced by Britain's answer to Giorgio Moroder, Bidou, who bought it off a travelling song salesman.
A German gentleman rang me up and he said, oh, I've got a tape of some music, can I play it to you? I said, yeah, sure. And he played me about 6 songs and they went very good. And he said, I got one more song, but you may not like it. I said, well, you've played me 6, play me the 7th. And the 7th was I Love to Love. It was about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. I love to love, but my baby loves to dance.
Because I'd been a session singer for so long, I suppose I just thought this is another song that will probably die without trace, and how I was proved wrong.
Oh, Tina of little faith. I Love to Love shot straight to the top of the charts.
That was one of the songs that we used to sing all the time with the hairbrush. And it's that bit that we used to love when she goes, button my baby. We used to say button.
So I love to love. Button my baby just loves to dance.
I can remember at Top of the Pops they put me on a gantry, and I hate heights, and I was petrified, and that was difficult. I'd like to have mimed on that day.
Top of the Pops, always a heady experience for a new band. Hot on Tina's heels were Liverpool group The Real Thing.
Their first chart entry, their first #1, You to Me Are Everything. This is The Real Thing. Yeah.
Bless the real thing, bless the real thing. Did like the real thing. You to Me Are Everything, the sweetest song that I can sing. Oh baby, oh baby.
Oh baby, oh baby. To you I guess I'm just a clown who picks you up each time we're down. Oh baby, oh baby. You give me just a taste of
The Real Thing also had fond memories of the slick professionalism of Top of the Pops.
Top of the Pops was the chaffer, you know, because you knew that if you made that programme, 99.9% of what you've been trying to achieve all your life was going to be just there for you to grab it, you know.
The main thing that I remember about performing You To Me Are Everything, in them days you used to do it with the Top of the Pops Orchestra. And they were all great musicians, but they were prone to having a couple of drinks in the break.
By the time you actually come to doing the final shoot, it was really frenetic, you know.
They were playing different things to what we were actually used to doing with our own band. Things were going wrong in the middle of the song, like, you know, the strings were coming in at the wrong place. And I phoned up our manager and I was absolutely disgusted with the performance. And he said, don't worry about it. He said it was a selling performance. And he was right, because as I say, a couple of weeks later, it was #1.
You know you got the power, girl.
No, they represented definitely for the UK because they had all the hallmarks of smooth, poppy American soul singers. I mean, you know, respect to the real thing.
KC, Gloria and Donna had taken disco from the underground to the mainstream, but disco was about to go global. Still to come, funky footwork, elemental magic from Earth, Wind and Fire, the Village People and Chic, the grooviest group on earth. Disco was about to take over the world, thanks to a small budget movie with some catchy tunes from 60s has-beens, the Bee Gees.
Tonight, Massachusetts from the Bee Gees.
I'm going back to Massachusetts. Something's telling me I must go home. And
now, who would have thought it? It's these ne'er-do-wells, I think they had a degree from Manchester, who had had a few hits in the mid-1960s, done really well, but basically couldn't get arrested by the time Saturday Night Fever happened. Then they relocate to America, they hook up with his producer Arif Mardin, who, in an inspired move, says to them, why don't you sing in falsetto?
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man, no time to talk. The music loud, women walk, being kicked around since I was born. Never tolerate, I don't care, and you may look the other way, but we can try to understand the New York Times.
And they quite rightly at the beginning said, what, are you mad? And he said, no, try it. Of course they try it, and 83 million records later, presumably they go, cheers Arif, good call.
When they told me the Bee Gees were doing the soundtrack, you know, I remember them for the 60s, and I was going, oh no, I want Aretha Franklin, and I want James Brown, you know? And then I heard the soundtrack, and it was just marvelous.
From Manchester to Massachusetts, the world agreed. Saturday Night Fever became the best-selling soundtrack of all time.
The Bee Gees, you see, they're still with us today. I still listen to that music. You can't knock it.
For better or worse, it is the linchpin of the Bee Gees' career.
Saturday Night Fever still comes on, and the hardest gangster from the hood sits down and sings Bee Gee records with that shit.
The film resurrected the career of the Brothers Gibb and launched that of a young man named Travolta.
Disco was Saturday Night Fever, and Saturday Night Fever was disco.
It was the first time that a man had openly groomed himself.
And the walk, of course, the walk. You know, everybody had to kind of perfect that seriously cool walk.
Okay, ready? Little bounce to your walk.
Every young man wanted to be in Travolta's shoes. Only one actually was.
I actually heard about the casting of the stand-in through a friend of mine. She said they're looking for a Travolta stand-in. You should submit yourself for that. And as it happened, I was the right, height, hair color, weight. I had the right physical requirements, so I got the job.
Hiya, Tony. 2 or 3?
Two. Give me 2. That's good.
The very opening shot where you see the feet and the shoes are almost kicking the lens, those are my feet. There's a shot of him swinging the paint can. That's me, that's my hand. When you see him holding his boot up to the window to compare to the shoes in the window, those are my feet. And then it pans up and you see him, full figure, and of course that's him. I've heard that John has looked at this and said he didn't get it right, you know, so, hey, I'm not John Travolta. Never claimed to be.
I love John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. You just watch him, and as he moves his hips, he's like saying, are you looking at my hips now? I know you are.
Travolta's dancing was the key to the movie's success, but it was up to disco dancer Denny Terrio to teach him the moves.
I met Travolta, and of course John come walking in, strutting, you know, and I said, well, can I see how you dance? He goes, oh, I already know how to dance. And I said, sit down. And I went over the radio and I turned the radio on. I was doing all the splits and the knee drops and the points and all that stuff.
Travolta was terrified by this. He looked at it and said, I'll never be able to do that. How can I leap in the air and touch my toes with my fingers up in the air? How can I do those Russian squats? And he was going to quit the movie.
We went 5 months of training, pre-production. I took him out to nightclubs and I told him, I said, you'll see the girls, there'll be 5 or 6 girls standing around and be at a table. When you start dancing up to par, they will come ask you to dance. And by the end of the 5 months, he would have long lines waiting for the girls to ask him to dance.
Are you as good in bed as you are on that dance floor?
He was sex on legs in that film. He was just the mover to end them all.
Could have been a brother, because he danced so well with those snake hips.
What he did well. But in the black community, there were kids up and down 34th Street on the street dancing 10 times better. Any one of them could have taught John Travolta how to dance.
Well, it was better than I could manage. All that suit thing. Did that in Rotters in Doncaster. With his suit jacket, it would have gone.
But the trademark suit wasn't always going to be white.
John originally wanted to wear black suits because black is cool. And I said, well, you know, I guess that'll make Karen Lynn Gorney very happy, his leading lady. And he said, why is that? I said, well, because you won't be able to see you and she's wearing a red dress. So all you'll see is Karen. So he kind of glowered and went out, and next thing I know, he came back with 2 white suits.
Before you knew it, Britain was getting out the medallions and the man-made fibres.
When one movie can dictate clothing trends, music trends, dance trends, how you talk, how you wear your hair, how much jewelry you wear, that's an incredible thing for a small movie like Saturday Night Fever at the time.
What Saturday Night Fever did for disco was precisely what Elvis Presley did for rock and roll. There were black musicians making rock and roll for years, and suddenly you put a white face on it, and it became the hottest thing in the world. And the same thing happened with disco.
When Saturday Night Fever suddenly took off, you know, I was doing sort of 1,800 people a night, and suddenly I was doing 3,000 people a night. You know, that's what it did.
As disco fever spread like a rash, every Mecca dancer in the land reinvented itself for the new disco generation.
The nightclubs had always been there, obviously, you know, the Mecca ballroom circuit, but overnight they became, you know, Spangles disco or Cinderella Rockefeller's disco and the big, fantastic amounts of violence, I seem to recall.
I used to go to this place called Rotters in Doncaster, which claimed to have Europe's most advanced sound and light system. It was just really a place to go and vomit.
Shame, 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 shame on you. If you can't dance too.
Was certainly the first time when you would have trouble getting into a club, not because of how old you were or how drunk you were, but by what you were wearing.
Stand in the queue, you know, black shoes, white socks, tash, one of my dad's jackets on, trying to look 19.
And this big oath of a doorman, the only bit of power he'd ever have in his life, to say, no, you're not coming in.
I go out by 8:30, I go about 9:15. You want to early? I didn't get in.
Shame on you. If you can't dance too.
That went on for years, and then one day the guy just went, go on in.
So you would walk in and there would be really some amazing lights going on.
Strobe lights were great. I'm a big fan of the strobe lighting. Talk about being a sucker. I just moved my arms like that. No attempt to dance. I just said, whoa, we're strobing. Look, everyone.
Don't you let nothing,
The cool thing was when you went to a disco was if you heard your song, you could slightly clear the dance floor and the three of you would get on, sort of go into the whole dance routine. People would go, they're really cool, they know the real dance routine.
Girls would start dancing about 8 o'clock. And then the boys would just stand around looking for a weak one, you know, trying to sort of separate her from the pack. We would try and dance, but unless you could dance like John Travolta, it was very difficult to pull it off.
But there were people who could dance like John Travolta. They even had their own TV shows.
Thank you, and welcome to Romeo and Juliet here in Doncaster for the EMI Yorkshire Television Final of the Disco Dancing Championship.
I mean, they became actually addictive viewing, didn't they? Because everything was so fast, and obviously everybody had to outdo each other as far as gymnastics. It was just like how many somersaults you can do and how many spins round and whatever.
And their face never moved from staring at the camera, but their body would spin 360 degrees, and they'd go like that, and they would have spun round 4 times.
I'm not too sure, but you're just not the same. We've got to find us a way.
I remember a guy called Grant Santino, I think his name was, who just used to stand there and shake. And he was the world disco dancing champion for wiggling his legs really quickly.
I got better and better and better every week because I was living, eating, breathing disco. I was lucky enough to win my area heat at Watford, and I went through to the big final in London and was broadcast on the Bruce Forsyth show every week.
Yes, it's time for the final of the United Kingdom Disco Championships. These are the 3 finalists, and tonight we are going to declare the winner. The 3 are Grant Santino, Maria Eldridge, and Tony Evans. Who's won? Well, that's the difficult decision facing tonight's judges, who are creator of the hot gossip dance group, Arlene Phillips.
Grant Santino was phenomenal. I mean, not only could he dance, but he could throw in all kinds of gymnastics into his dance. You know, in the middle of doing a dance step, you suddenly throw in a backflip, and then as cool as can be, you go on moving.
No, hang on a minute. If you're in a disco, you sort of just go like that. But no way you're going to win a disco dancing competition by doing that. I should have given it a go, shouldn't I? I said, and what is Mr. Riveron going to do? Just this. No, sorry, you've not won. Who's won? The guy flick-flacking across the flipping stage. He's won. Yes, of course he has.
Until they turn around and say, and in first place, you know, it doesn't actually sink in. So it's something I'll never forget.
The winner is Grant Santino. Give it to Grant.
I remember I was doing a gig in, I think it was Peterborough, and they had a huge poster up and it said, "Move over Travolta, Santino has arrived," which I thought was very amusing.
The place where every self-respecting disco dancing champion wanted to go was the Queen of Clubs, New York's Studio 54.
I went to Studio 54 once. I had the most incredible, fabulous time.
It was thrilling, absolutely thrilling.
Push, push in the bush.
I'd never seen anything like it in my life.
It was the first time I'd seen men kissing each other, seen joint smoke and seen coke taken.
Studio was where the beautiful people came to get down on it. If you were lucky, you might even spill Liza Minnelli's Tia Maria.
You could see, in any given night, people like Travolta, Al Pacino, Andy Warhol, Bianca Jagger, Michael Jackson, Rod Stewart, Cher, Diana Ross, you name it.
Difficult to know what it is exactly that attracts people here. All that one can be absolutely sure of is that it isn't the conversation.
Strangely, conversation was the last thing on people's minds.
We were drinking, we were doing the drugs, we were making love all over the place.
And there was no limits. If you wanted to take your clothes off and dance, take your clothes off and dance. If you want to go upstairs and have sex, go upstairs and have sex.
Are you ready? I went up there by accident, and it was an orgy scene, literally an orgy scene. And then downstairs were just kind of people just taking drugs really openly. It was unbelievable.
Sex in the toilets, actually not even in the toilets, on the dance floor in front of you, you know, coke sniffing sort of like everywhere. Because in those days, of course, cocaine wasn't addictive. You know, everyone swore that it wasn't addictive, so you could take as much of it as possible. And we did.
So I get back that evening, scribble home to my mother, "Oh, Mummy, this is what I've done." Blah, 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 blah. You know, my mother's on the phone a week later saying, "Get back home."
In one respect, Studio was just like Cinderella's back home. If your name wasn't down, you weren't coming in.
Oh, you're not shaved? There's no way in a million years you're going to get in. It doesn't matter if you're not shaved. Listen, just go home.
They would do anything to get into the studio. They'd try to offer us money. They'd offer us drugs. Girls would offer you sexual favors. You know, let us in, we'll do anything. So what do you mean by anything, you know? And they proceed to give you the dictionary interpretation of anything.
Even disco's rising stars couldn't be sure of getting into Studio.
Our names weren't on the list. And no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't get in. So we went back to my place and we had a couple of bottles of champagne, and next thing you know, we start playing this riff. Down, down. And we just go, fuck off. Aw, fuck off. My partner, he goes, "You know this shit is happening, right?"
Have you heard about the new dance craze?
Rechristened Freak Out, it became one of many anthems from the Beatles of disco, the Mighty Chic.
By everyone, it's up to you. Sure they can be done. Young and old are doing it, I'm told. Just one try.
People who are kind of musically illiterate in the sense of don't play instruments often look down their noses at things like disco music. I've been trying to teach myself the riffs to most of the Chic records for the better part of 20 years now. It's musically phenomenally complicated. These guys are two of the hottest musicians imaginable, but they carry their learning really lightly.
I say free.
Chic just wanted to get on with the idea of, you know, getting down, yowza, in the groove.
Yowza, yowza, yowza. I wanna boogie with you.
When you talk about disco music, forget the others. They're all pretenders to the Chic throat. I mean, Chic were not just a disco band. They were the funkiest disco band.
I mean, he's a genius, Nile Rodgers. He created a whole new sound.
We use disco as a tool to peddle our brand of R&B, jazz, dance music.
You put Chic records on today, and they're still timeless.
The nucleus of Chic were Bernard Edwards and Nile Rodgers.
Everybody Dance is the very first record that I ever wrote for Chic. And I wrote that sort of without Bernard to an extent. And I remember he walks in and he says, "Ah, man, that sounds great. How does the hook go?" And I said, "Check this out. Everybody dance. Do-do-do-do, clap your hands, clap your hands." And Bernard looked at me and went, "Do-do-do-do? Well, what does do-do-do-do mean?" I went, "You know, just do-do-do-do, like tra-la-la, do-do-do-do."
The most in-demand record producers in the world. Record labels wanted the Chic sound for their biggest acts.
We said, well, instead of giving us somebody who's at the top of the roster, why don't you give us somebody who's at the bottom of the roster? That way we could show you what we do. And the president started talking about this group, and he was basically writing the song, because he was sitting and saying, "Yeah, well, we have this group of girls, you know, and they're like family to us, and if one is happy, all four are happy, and this and that." And then we're taking out all these notes, and we get home, and there's the essence of the song that became We Are Family. It's all right there.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing.
They felt so confident that it would be a hit. And they would just say, "Trust us. Don't worry. It's going to be all right."
Sister Sledge, you know, We Are Family. Oh, Jesus, brilliant records. Absolutely brilliant.
Everyone can see we're together as we walk on by. And we fly just like birds of a feather.
My first female crush ever was Kathy Sledge, the one with the braces from Sister Sledge. I don't know why.
You're a metal mouth. That's what we were.
Can they be that close?
Years later, I met her and I said to her, "Do you know what? You were my first female crush with your braces. Braces in, not out."
We are family.
I used to put the microphone right here to block the braces.
One of the lead singers had braces on her teeth. And it was okay. And it was okay.
We didn't mind that. We got letters from people saying, "You know what? I'm not ashamed of my braces anymore because you're just out there all over television with them."
I got all my sisters with me.
And they were just like the female Jackson 5, weren't they?
Family. Get up, everybody, and sing.
Hot band, you know. I wonder why he's the greatest dancer.
He's the greatest dancer. One night in the disco on the outskirts of Frisco, I was...
We basically created their world. The stuff that they sing about, it was our vision of what Sister Sledge was going to be like. We wanted Sister Sledge to reflect the whole disco thing. We wanted them to talk about, you know, designers, you know, Halston, Gucci.
Fiorucci, he looks like a steer. That man is dressed to kill.
When we first met Sister Sledge, they were the most innocent, religious, nice girls. We're from New York. We didn't know, I mean, I don't mean anything bad, but we didn't know nice girls. The first song we gave to them was He's the Greatest Dancer. And the lyric went, my creme de la creme, please take me home.
Bleed my creme de la creme, please take me home. He wears the finest clothes.
They had a big problem with that. They had like, excuse me, Niall, we don't want to send a message like that we can go out to a club and meet a man and he would just take us home.
That was the impression that, okay, one night stand type thing, and
kind of depicted that whole Studio 54.
We weren't about that. We were coming out of church, and it was like.
And to this day, when you see Sister Sledge sing "We Are Family" live, they say, "My creme de la creme, please don't go home."
One group who would have had no problem singing, well, pretty much anything really, were the Mad Emperors of Disco, Earth, Wind and Fire.
Every song they wrote was just like a masterpiece, you know what I mean? I used to love Earth, Wind and Fire.
The characteristics of the Earth, Wind and Fire sound is like the horns and harmonies.
They were fantastic vocalists. They were fantastic musicians. They were fantastic writers. The only thing they couldn't do very well was dancing.
Earth, Wind and Fire was probably the reason I even started collecting records. I just fell in love with this group of very unlikely looking blokes.
Maurice White's got the strangest haircut because it looks like he's left a pair of giant headphones on, cans on like that.
He dressed like Tutankhamun would dress if he only had Alcan foil to hand.
Big shoulder pads beyond, shoulder pads with wings, man, and like rocket launchers at the back. And big platform wheels with...
They were just a joy. It was like, wow, this is brilliant. Look what you're doing. You're all dressed up like nutters. Had they dressed up and the music was bad, it would have been really sad. But they dressed up and the music was great.
Earth, Wind and Fire ruled the earth as mighty titans in the late 70s. And are the authors of some tremendous records, including Boogie Wonderland.
Big Earth, Wind and Fire fan, and what was great was they didn't let you down when you went to see them live.
Massive laser show, Earth, Wind and Fire, and all these Egyptian symbols appear on the back.
I love their whole Suedo, mystical Egyptian, Scorpio, signs of the horoscope thing.
Right before we would go on stage, we would have a circle, and we would like hold hands and meditate together for about 5 minutes.
There's spaceship suddenly landing on stage, like them coming out in these outrageous outfits.
Lots of fireworks, lots of lights. They had like magic in their show. I think the bass player disappeared at one point.
Levitating off the stage floor, and we would disappear in pyramids. great fun. I thought I was a magician for a while.
But Earth, Wind and Fire were underdressed compared to the act who turned disco into panto. The writing was on the wall, and it spelled YMCA.
Young man, there's no need to feel down. I said, young man, pick yourself off the ground. I said, young man, 'cause you're in a new town. There's no need to be unhappy, young man.
There was a construction worker.
There was Red Indian,
policeman,
cowboy,
an astronaut,
homosexual, and another homosexual.
fantastic. So lovely.
It all began when two French producers, Jacques Morali and Henri Bololo, spotted a Red Indian walking the streets of New York.
The guy went into a bar, we went into a bar after him, and we discovered he was a bartender and he was serving drinks, and every 15 minutes he was dancing on the bar. And suddenly Jack and I, we got struck by that idea. Why we don't try to put together a group of male American stereotypes.
I found it extraordinary when YMCA then became #1 all over the world. Nobody twigged that they were a bunch of gay stereotypes.
Millions of people had no idea these were men in gay outfits being very openly gay.
You can do whatever you feel. Young man, I was once in your shoes. I said I was down and out with the blues.
How can a Native American guy dressed like that look? How can a builder with a big... How can he be camp? How can a traffic cop be camp?
If you go to any like heavy hardcore sex shop, they say got nothing but police uniforms, especially highway patrol, because they wear the tight pants.
Oh, I see. I didn't know, but I loved them.
They can stop you back on your way. It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
The YMCA membership grew like 300% after that song came out. And yet that song had one meaning and one meaning alone, but everybody took it another way. You know, it's fun to stay out where you can get a good meal and work out and, yeah, right.
Because the theme of the song, hilarious. That cheap sex is available at the Young Men's Christian Association, is a tremendous message for America.
In the Navy, yes, you can sail the 7 seas. In the Navy, yes, you can put your mind at ease. In the Navy.
And then they go and do In the Navy, and they borrow an American submarine. And still, nobody twigs until like the record's out and the video's been made.
Come on, protect the motherland. In the Navy. Come on and join your fellow man. In the Navy. In the Navy. In the Navy. In the Navy.
The American Navy perhaps naively thought that the village people would be perfect for their recruitment drive. They were happy to lend them a ship. Anyone you like.
It was the pick of the fleet. They brought out a book with all the ships in it.
They painted it.
Jacques and Henri
strung the colors.
A ship which they thought most kids would identify with as, you know, your kind of bathtub, you know, battleship.
But then the Navy, well, got to the bottom of it.
The newspaper called New York Post had front page. The Navy is using tax dollars money to contribute to the video clip of a group with ambiguity. So the Navy immediately stopped the campaign and they said officially that it was for budgetary reasons. But when they stopped the campaign, all the papers wrote about it, so the publicity was good for us.
Can't Stop the Music Scene, 86-8, take one.
Discharged and back on dry land, the village people quit New York and headed for Hollywood. It was to prove a low point for disco and the movies.
I quit my job, you got me walking the beat again, and I'm not even getting paid for it.
Hey, now, horses. I told you I had a surprise for you.
I hope so. I turned in my coin change with the toll booth.
Hey, don't forget I quit my job too. I got faith in you.
Really?
Yeah, I got faith in all of you. So let's get going. I got a place to rehearse this afternoon right around here. Hey! And it's free! All right!
You can't stop the music. Nobody can stop the music. Tell the sun to shine. Stop them all the time. 'Cause that's easier to do. You can't stop the music.
Mercifully, someone did stop the music.
The movie Can't Stop the Music was shot in 1979. Middle of 1980, we knew that definitely the movie was a flop. And disco was starting to fade away.
Kids like to be hip. And if they see things happening in front of them that obviously aren't hip, they move on to something else pretty fast.
This is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally.
By 1979, the inevitable disco backlash had arrived. Cloth-eared agitators and rock fans converged on a baseball stadium in Chicago, and under the banner of Disco Sucks, stormed the pitch, blew up effigies, and burned records.
The thing that was really upsetting and heartbreaking to me is that I looked upon disco music as some of the most politically powerful music that had ever happened to American culture. Because even though in the 60s we could talk about women's liberation and we can talk about the gay movement and civil rights movement, in the 70s it played itself out in pop culture and was big.
To me, it looks like nothing more than a Nazi book burning put into a football stadium, and you could say that's taking that too seriously, but I'm not sure. I think there was a real element of homophobia and racism and sexism in the Disco Sucks movement.
I think that the people who started that sort of disco sucks and all of that craziness were people who were making their money in other genres of music and really wanted disco to die, but it hasn't died yet.
Disco never really went away. I don't think so. I think the only thing that really went away was the name. You will always have dance music.
You know, disco just transformed into different areas. I mean, and any musical cycle has to come to an end.
Disco now is just, you know, house, it's garage, it's jungle, it's techno.
I always say disco has not died. It simply changed its name to protect the innocent.
And next week, when rock ruled the world.
Sex, drugs and rock and roll. You must learn him how to give blowjobs at school. I always thought that was a good idea. That's so rock and roll.
Try that one if you think you're man enough.
This is Black Sabbath. Kill him!
Turn that shit down, that's what you want to do.
These go to 11.
You think